Hello and welcome to FI for Kids, the podcast about guiding your kids on the path to financial independence and extraordinary lives. I'm your host, Dominic Delacqua. Our guest today is Stoy Hall. Stoy is a father of two, a certified financial planner, the host of the No BS Wealth podcast, and the CEO and founder of Black Mammoth, where he and his team provide financial education and emphasize what Stoy calls the modern family office approach to financial success. Welcome, Stoy, and thanks for coming on the show.
I appreciate it. I'm really happy to be here, and it's going to be fun. I can promise that.
Yeah, great. Okay. So you've got a pretty interesting background. So let's start there. You grew up in the Midwest, raised by your mom, and you describe it as you went from financial illiteracy to financial empowerment. So let's talk about what you learned from growing up with just a single parent and what you learned about money, whether that was directly or just sort of observationally. Let's start there.
Yeah. Well, I'll first start with we didn't come from money, right? So I learned about, living on minimal things and survival, and living in that mindset. But my mom did go through a couple different careers. At one point, she also had her own cleaning business, with my grandmother too. So I started to understand a little more of the entrepreneurial side of things. Now, did they do it correctly and all of the things I would teach today? Absolutely not. Mm-hmm. But what I did get to see is the joy of them being able to go off in the middle of the day to do whatever they need to do for work while being there and providing. And I think that stuck with me quite a bit as well, and why I'm a business owner as I am today. But the one single thing that I learned that I didn't realize I learned until my mom passed in 2021 was everyone has different types of relationship with money, right? Mm-hmm. Some people call it love language, whatever, but it also comes down to the relationship with money. My mom's relationship with money was all solely focused on providing for others. Like if she had it, she would give it away. She never really saved for herself and really saved for the future, whether that's, her thinking she would never get there or just how she is. Someone's in need, I need to give. Mm-hmm. And as I reflected back onto that in 2021, I recognized that more. I figured out that's what it was. When I was a kid, it was resentment. Like, we don't have anything my friends do, right? And all of this stuff. And now that I reflect back, I can say, hey, no, that's just her relationship with money. And there's good and bad into that, right? Sure. There's the good side of taking care of others. Hopefully we all do. The bad side is if you don't take care of yourself, then how can you continue to take care of others?
Yeah.
Those were the lessons, two main lessons I've learned when I was young.
Now, did you talk anything directly about money with your mom, or it's just the things that you kind of picked up on by just observation?
I loved math, and math and money kind of go together a little bit, but no, we never really spoke about money besides, hey, we don't have enough money to have that, or hey, I just got paid so we can go get that. Outside of that, there was minimal conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's an interesting, this whole idea that people have different relationships with money, and the different conversations and the things we're thinking in our head affects all kinds of things in our lives, including money, which then touches all the other aspects of our lives. So she was bringing in money, but that was focused on providing for others. I don't know, just expand on that a little bit more in terms of, I guess, I think obviously, right, that benefited you, and I'm sure other people in your community, whoever your mom was sort of coming in contact with or wherever she was helping out when she could, and that gave her some satisfaction. But talk a little bit about the downsides you saw in that, because she wasn't taking care of herself, right? So, I mean, what I'm taking from what you're saying is that while that was great what she was doing and a motivating factor in a good way, it also lacked some balance, is how I'm taking it.
Yeah, you have to be. You have to be selfless and selfish at the same time. There's got to be that balance. Yeah. Because for her not then focusing on herself and taking care of herself first, her health deteriorated both mentally and physically, right? She was working nonstop to provide, right? And there was no end game. There was nothing. This is just what I'm doing. This is how I'm operating every day. And that'll burn you out. Back then they didn't really call it burnout as much as we do today, but that's what it was. She burned herself out, but couldn't stop, couldn't rest, both from a fact that she didn't have enough money to, but also because mentally she didn't know how to take care of herself first. That's the problem, right? That's the downside of being able and being a giver is at some point you got to give to yourself. And I recommend giving to yourself first, but to each their own.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So that kind of leads us into then at Black Mammoth, I know you talk about the idea of true wealth. And I think that kind of ties in to what we've been talking about. So talk about what you mean by true wealth.
Yeah, and I always started off with the story. So I went to Tanzania in 2011 with our football team at Drake University, and we get off the plane to a celebration, which was amazing. But then we get unloaded into buses, and we're traveling through to get to the hotel. And if you look around, it was women sweeping mud floors, right? They were just sweeping mud floors. A naive little 22-year-old, from the Midwest going to Africa going, why would they be sweeping mud floors? Like it's mud, it's dirt, it's just going to be the same, right? There's no
Yeah.
point. And throughout that 2 weeks, I started to figure out what true wealth meant. They were happy. That
Mhm.
was their life. They had a sense of community. They were able to give back and help each other out. And they don't have money. Let's be real. Majority of all, probably 99% of Americans have more money than the villages we went through. And that's when it really started to hone in on what true wealth was. Being wealthy is about living joyfully, giving back to others, and living life within your own parameter means that you want to, not what others dictate to you. And guess what? That doesn't have to do with having $2 million or $1 billion or whatever your number is. And that's what really defined that definition for me. So that's what true wealth is, right? It's the ability to live your life joyfully, giving back to others that you see fit, and then living life on your terms and using money as a tool to do so, but not grading yourself because you have zeros or no zeros in your bank account.
Yeah, right. Well, because right there are a lot of people, and I'm sure you've seen this in your work with people as a financial planner who have plenty of money but haven't managed it well or don't have good balance between their income and their spending, and then are still, even though they might have a lot coming in, unlike your mom, let's say, for example, and still don't really have financial stability and aren't really sort of are struggling to get to sort of where they want to go, right? Because they haven't identified what really matters to them and then made good choices about, okay, I'm going to spend money on these things because they really bring me joy and make my life better, and I'm going to not spend money on these other things because I really don't get that much out of them. Or, right, I think some of what you alluded to, I think a lot of times people get caught up in, well, here's what I'm supposed to do, or here's what other people are doing and I've got to be like them, and then they're spending money on stuff where, like, again, is that really, does that really making your life better, or you're falling into some sort of routine or some sort of rut, or a series of habits that you haven't thought about and you're not deliberate about. You're just following along with what you think you're supposed to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So then what are you, when you're working with people and you see some of those tendencies, then what advice are you giving them to help them, or what are you teaching them to try and help them have a better understanding and break out of some of those habits and move towards a place of more true wealth, so that they're happier in addition to right, so that they have that they obviously, right, they have money goals and they things that they want to be able to do with that, but the money is just a tool to provide this joy and this happiness that really is what we're all after. So it doesn't matter whether you're the women sweeping mud floors in Tanzania and you don't have any money, you're finding a way to be happy. And we have the same struggles here in a completely different way. And it seems a little bit ridiculous, but all we have to do is look around and you can see people who have plenty of money who are still not happy, right? So how do you approach that when people come into you, and how do you go about helping them understand this connection between happiness and their money?
Yeah. So we do an exercise, and this is a fun exercise you all can do right now. So I'll give it to you. Is one, I ask them what truly brings them joy. What are the happiest memories, things that they know in their life they want to do. Like, this is them. Not go to college, have a kid, that type of stuff that we're told to do.
Yeah.
Like you truly, like what are the things that truly bring you joy? We have them write those down. And then I have them get the last 12 months of their bank and credit card statements or whatever accounts they have. And I want them to get a highlighter and highlight every one of those things that aligns with what brings them joy. Every, okay? Different highlighter color. Highlight all the things that don't bring you joy and you just did because you did. right? Now, obviously, there's going to be things in between that you just have to do, like I'm sure mortgage or rent, like those are going to be in there. Those won't be highlighted.
Yeah.
Add up all of the green ones. I like using green. Could that make me happy? So I'll add up all the green ones, right? Brought me joy. Add up all the red ones that did not bring me joy, and look at those numbers. I can't say guarantee much in my industry because compliance will always bite me in the butt. I will guarantee you your green is not going to be as much spending as your red.
Right.
And then I want you to go back to those Joey questions and the memories and say, am I aligning my financial decisions based upon me or based upon whatever thing?
Yeah.
And usually we cry, we have a good time about it. But in that whole process, it starts to break down this facade and this wall of I am in control. It's not in control of me. I'm in control. And so when I make these decisions, it's based upon the things that I enjoy and what I want out of my life, not just because the algorithm fed it to me and I pushed, buy type of thing.
Yeah. Right. Right. That's really cool because there's a number of things I like about that. So first, I just like it's very visual, right? So that makes it easy for people to see, oh, okay, right. Hey, well, if, I guess before even that, right, before you get to the visual point, as they're creating the visual, they're actually having to, of course, look at all their expenses, but then think about them, right? In a sense, it's almost like in a completely sort of separate world, right? Marie Kondo and her tidying up, the Japanese art of decluttering, right? There's this whole idea as you're going through stuff about you pick it up and you look at it and does it spark joy? And if it doesn't spark joy, then it's time to let it go. Right. And it's kind of the same with our money. I never thought about it that way before, but the exercise that you have people do reminds me of that, right? Because you're highlighting it, it gets that visual. Oh, these are the things I can see them that bring me joy. Oh, and here's all the things I'm spending money on that I don't. So then it really paints a clear picture for them like, okay. And then they can start thinking about which one of those things they've highlighted in red or whatever color that they don't like that they pick, right? That they can start to live without. And then they can see, okay, it's not just this idea of a budget and I've got to have a budget and everybody hates because they feel like, oh, it's restrictive. This is you're getting at the same type of a thing, but it's a very different approach that I can only imagine has a very different resonates with people in a very different way. So I think that's really great, man. That's really very cool.
Yeah, it's doing the exact opposite what everyone's been told forever, right? Instead of separating your emotions from your decisions, it's bringing the emotions into the decisions.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
Every decision we make is emotional, regardless if you think it's not or not, right?
That's right. Yep.
But since we know our emotions, we know who we are so connected, we need to be making those decisions integratedly and not trying to fight forces. And when you do that, then it no longer feels like you're making a decision.
Right.
It's like, this is what I'm doing because it's who I am. And then it ends up cleaning up your entire budget. It really, truly does because it makes your decision making aligned with you as much as anything else, right? For example, I hate black licorice. I don't want to eat black licorice, right? If black licorice is in front of me, I'm not going to eat it. I'm not going to choose to, even if it's the only thing to eat there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm in line with what I want to do. I know that's not great, right?
Right.
But others who are like, man, I am starving. You know what? It's there. It's free. I'll do it. Even though they don't like it, even though it's going to taste bad and they don't want to do it. That's the difference. We're just aligning money in your other decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that fits with what I say all the time, right? And I think I already said it before, which is in order to really sort of reach financial independence, the whole point is to have more opportunities and to have a more fulfilling, joyful life, right? Which kind of gets it, it ties, it's similar to what you talk about with true wealth. But in order to do all those things, you've got to know what you value, right? What brings you joy. And in many ways, we already, as adults anyway, we already know a lot of those things. Although sometimes it's easy to forget or lose sight of, but any sort of exercise that you do, like your exercise again, is a great exercise, helps you refocus some of that and then realize, oh, I've been spending some time and money on things that really I don't get that much out of. What if I make some realignments and they actually fit more with me? And by fit more with me, like you're saying, it's like, well, these are the things that make me happy. So I'm going to spend more time, more money on those things and less on these others. So yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Okay. So let's let's switch this into then kids a little bit, right? So how do you, what do you suggest in terms of starting your kids along this path so that by the time that they get to young adulthood and then beyond, that they've already started to develop some of these ways of thinking and some of these habits? So, and that could be, if you've got any examples of what you're teaching your own kids, or also if you're working with your clients at all in terms of what they're teaching their kids. So just let's talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. One, again, back to what we just talked about. As a parent, you better get it nailed down first because it's going to be hard to explain to a child that you're doing it this way and I'm doing it differently. So
Yeah.
just nail it down yourself. But what we do for our kids, our two boys, and for our clients is one, we set them up obviously with the bank account. We use Greenlight. I think it's tremendous at this point because you could set up jobs, chores, investing, saving. You can set it all up. Everything you would need as an adult, Greenlight's going to have for you. But so we use that in multitude of ways. One, we separate chores and jobs. Chores are our everyday living stuff. Jobs is what you get paid for around the house or whatever we ask of you. You get paid that job, it automatically gets allocated into regular general checking account, savings, and then investing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not able to move it out and say, hey, well, I got paid $10. I'm just going to move it for no. It is automatically put into those categories. In those categories, we say investing something you're not touching until you graduate college.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really matter when it is, but that's long-term vision,
Long
right?
term.
Wide, right?
Especially for a kid.
Say it again?
Especially for a kid, that's forever.
Yeah,
Right?
that's forever.
Yeah.
Retirement. Like, how old will I be? The savings is specific goals. I want them to save for something specific, whether it's
Okay.
a new game, a new ball, new cleats. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
The general
Yeah.
savings is designed for to have a goal attached to it.
Cool.
Then they have the regular account, right? And so when we teach them that, whenever we go to the grocery store or whatever, and they're like, hey, I really want that. My youngest just did this the other day. I really want that Pikachu doll. Cool. You got your money on you? Go ahead. Usually, as parents, we'd go, that's a waste of money. You have enough dolls. You don't need any more stuff, right? That's because we haven't thought about through what brings us joy. In that moment, the kid loved that. They want to be able to use their own money for what they believe and what brings them happiness. You got to let them do that. Now you have to set them up for success. And you do that by when money comes in, you only allocate it towards certain things, right? If they're getting paid $10 a week, not $9 is going to general fund where they can blow it. No, it's going to be 40 goes or 4 goes there, 3 goes to investing, and the other 3 goes into savings.
Yeah.
So that they can make these proper decisions for themselves. So that's how we do it in our household. It's been tough. Right? I've caught my wife and I sometimes are going, just let them purchase it. It's their own money. They have that own account for a reason. Just because they wanted to buy candy that we have at home, right? Like you got to let them do that because they have to figure it out. But then you educate them. And so then we do a financial meeting as a family once a month to go through what are our next goals that we're saving for, or where are we at? And then we go through the investing, right? I let them buy stocks. I let them figure out what's going on, how that works, and then reflect on, okay, the purchases you did, how does it feel now? Like, are you still using that toy? Like, are you still happy about that? Or was that something kind of a waste of your money? And let them come to that realization and don't force it, right? My kid just did this too. He also bought another car. He has about 4,000 little cars. He doesn't have one. He didn't even remember buying it, but I didn't tell him, hey, oh, that's a bad purchase. I just said, would you need to buy another one again then? And he said, no, right? So they know, they're smart enough. We don't need to push them for anything, but you have to set them up correctly. Otherwise, they're going to be living the life like you did, right? And trying to transition their brain when they're adults is a lot harder than when they're kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that strategy. We do something similar here, and some of the other people that I've talked to on the show have done different. I mean, there are different ways to kind of sort of allocate those things out, and everyone looks at it a little bit differently. But I think those are great strategies because, well, the combination of things, right? You're you're setting them up for long-term success, but you've got this investing money that's long-term. So they're learning this idea of long-term, even though they don't really understand it when they're younger, but you're starting to teach that. So that's going to pay off in the long run, right? And then this idea of like you've got money you're saving for a specific thing, also very important, right? That's a very good and essential habit to learn, right? Also teaches some delayed gratification, so important. And then, they've got their spending money, and that's kind of it can be their impulse money. And, different kids have different money personalities. And like our daughter, she holds on to that, and she'll be in the store, and especially when she was younger, and we'd go on a trip, and they always want to go in the gift shop, and she's walking around and look, because I want to make sure I'm spending my money on something that's really going to matter. It takes forever, right? And our son is like, nope, I'm having that. I'm getting that. Like, well, that's going to be all the money you have. Yeah, it's okay. I don't care. And he's done. He's out, right? And he's a spender. He's always wanting to spend, but he's only got that certain amount. And when it's gone, he knows it's gone. And he has learned over time and gotten better. So kind of similar to some of your examples, right? There was one time we're on a trip, and he had like $2.37 left in his spending money, and it was burning a hole in his pocket, man. He had to spend it. So you got some weird, goofy, worm, rubbery snake thing that, we're thinking, oh, why? But you know what? Like, he played with that thing all the time in just the dumbest ways for like 2 years after that. So for him, it wasn't a stupid purchase, right? And it was the money that was there for him to spend all of it if he wanted to, and that was his choice. But those habits have also sort of changed a little bit with him over time. So I completely agree with you that you set them up for success, so they've got money that they can blow however they see fit, and sometimes they're going to make mistakes, but you've got guardrails around it, and that's how they learn, right? So yeah, I think that's great. That's a really good strategy. Do you talk to your clients about teaching their kids those same kind of things?
Absolutely. And we usually bring the kids into the meetings,
Oh, cool.
not every month, but like, when pertinent times come into play, because sometimes the parents just don't know how to explain it, or it's better to come from someone else. So we go through that with them, but I teach them first, right? So within a budget, I know it's a negative connotation. No one likes the word budget.
Mm-hmm.
There's two items that we change in our clients' allocation and their budget lines. One, we get rid of groceries and eating out. That is one item, that's food, right? Because the only reason you're going out to eat or to the grocery store is to feed yourself. So we put that as one line item as food. And then the others, we add a fun money allocation. So the reason we feel that way about that little snake thingy that your son bought was because like we don't have our own just burn it money sitting
Yeah,
aside
yeah.
as adult. We don't. Now we end up spending more than we have anyway because we don't have that allocated. So if
Mm.
you have a $50, $100 a month fund money that literally you could set on fire every month and it wouldn't affect anything to do with your budget, guess what? You're going to go buy that dumb thing. And guess
Yeah,
what? It's going to bring you joy. And
yeah.
it's okay. We just have been drilled in as adults. We don't usually have that allocation. And therefore, now all of those little things look like dumb purchases. But realistically, we're humans. Impulse buying and things like that do bring us some joy and is really good for our mental health. So you got to allocate yourselves that way. So we change everyone's budget with those two items, and then that helps them understand, and then we feed it down to the children.
Yeah, yeah, cool. And I like that fun money idea. Like that's a good idea. So yeah, that's cool. You're doing some cool stuff there, man. Like that's really cool.
I think outside the box.
Yeah, yeah. Today's episode is sponsored by Slingshot, a Singleton Foundation program. Slingshot is a free web app that makes it easy for anyone to create and launch a business idea. It guides you through the process of creating and clarifying your concept, then leads you into areas necessary for any business, such as identifying your target customers, working up your financial plan, your marketing plan, and more. It'll help you seek funding, or even if you don't want to start your own business, you could also use Slingshot to work up the details to help your current employer solve a problem or start something new within an organization that you might already be working for. You can find Slingshot at slingshot.io. I'll put a link for that in the show notes. And thanks to Slingshot and the Singleton Foundation for sponsoring today's episode. So, the modern family office. Let's talk about what you mean by that. Explain that.
Yeah. So a traditional family office is the most, and I'm used wealthy this time in terms of actual money. So the ultra wealthy, right? The high net worths, the one who have all the money in the world, have had these, what they call family offices that help continue on their generational money, right? These family offices usually are their legal, the accounting, marketing, lending, anything under the sun for them so that they can focus on whether it's their job or their family, right?
Mhm.
Setting up travel, doing all the bill pay. That's the traditional family office side of things. Takes care of literally tip to tail everything that goes in someone's life. And throughout, my career, I'm like, everyone should have that, right? Everyone who's able to should be able to have a team of people when they have an issue that they can say, hey, XYZ happened. I need help. I don't know what to do. The team goes, okay, cool. This is what we're doing. We'll execute it, right? Now, the problem is in the traditional family office standpoint, or the single family office, if you will, is one family is paying for all of those types of people. Well, I know I don't have $250,000 sitting around to hire an attorney to sit there and be on call whenever something pops up, right?
Yeah.
I don't have all of that money sitting there for a travel agent. I don't travel that much, right? So in the single family office side of things, they have more complexity and a lot more things going on that makes sense to hire an entire team internally.
Sure.
So how do we scale that? Well, we go into the multi-family office approach and we modernize it a little bit, right? Since we have virtual stuff, we have AI stuff, we have the ability to do that exact same thing. We just can scale it down to everyday people. We do it for business owners a lot, and that's who we focus on, but you can really scale it to anybody because now instead of it being all in-house for the family, or all of it in-house for me as a business, I'm continuing my network of resources and always going out and meeting new people, vetting them out and having them ready available when a client has a need. When they have a need, I can call a couple up. This is the issue we're going on with the client. Is this something that you can help execute? Awesome. RFP it. Client, I've got a couple people I want you to meet. We meet them. Client goes, I really like the one. Awesome. Let's go with them. I'll follow up, make sure the process is done. Client doesn't have to worry about it unless they legally have to sign stuff, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Create that transaction's done, we move on. Or middle of the transaction, something happens, we fire that person, we move on to the next, right?
Yeah.
All of those items are taken care of from a modern family office. And so that's what I mean by modern family office is having the ability of anything in your life being taken care of from a team of people for you. That way, you're not trying to live this life alone. And I will say this to the day I die, there's not one successful person on this earth, not one rich person on this earth that has done it alone.
Nope.
It's impossible.
Yep.
You have to have a team. And so for all of you out there that are like, I can control my own money, I can make the right decisions. You can't. It's an impossible feat. You may get lucky here and there, but at the long run, you will not be as successful as you would if you had a team.
Yeah. Well, and I think you bring up a great point, right? The ultra wealthy, right? For those of us who are not involved in that world or haven't read a lot of stuff about those people, it just seems like, oh, right, like maybe one person that, Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg or whoever it is, right? But what you don't see is exactly what you're saying. All these people around them that are constantly providing advice and taking care of this thing or that thing, and they're paying all those people. And like you suggested, a lot of those people just on retainer or as part of their businesses because they're just operating at a much different level. But having been an entrepreneur myself, in a small business sort of sense, it's still very common. You still have to have a team. Now, you're not paying those people all the time on retainer, right? But when I had a restaurant, I had a real estate lawyer, right, that I would go to. I had a banker, right? I had an accountant, right? I had some other people that were sort of my ad hoc or my as needed team. And what you're saying is, even as individuals, when you're trying to manage your finances, and there is a school of thinking out there that you can manage your individual or your family finances like a business. And I think there's a lot of value in that entrepreneurial mindset, right? And then it would be the same thing, right? So you've got a team of people available, and what it sounds like you're saying is you kind of act as kind of a facilitator or a clearinghouse for that, right? So because you're in this world and you're meeting and you're making a point to go out and meet and network and build these relationships. Then when a client of yours has a need, you've got some people to help suggest them to, rather than they have to go out and start trying to figure out who that person might be to help with legal stuff or whatever it might be on their own. So am I getting that right?
Yeah, you're getting it right. And then once we're onboarded long enough and we're intertwined with their family, now I can go ahead and do stuff, right? I can forecast and predict and move forward before them as opposed to reacting when something pops up, right? So we can always be that because we are so in tune. I mean, we meet monthly at a minimum. We text and call and Slack probably every other day with every client, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
We are very much on a right-hand basis. Like we know each other in and out. They know our families, everyone's involved. And when you're on that level, it no longer is hard to tell them sometimes what to do, right? A lot
True.
of our industry, we shy away from that because of liability and all of these things that go on. But at the end of the day, sometimes people don't know what they don't know, and you have to tell them, no, you can't do that, or we need to do that.
Yeah.
You need to take this risk. It is a, if you miss out on this opportunity, right? Those things need to be told, but you can't do that when you're just high level or you're just dealing with their investments or you just do their insurance because you don't know them as people, right? You don't
Right.
know them as a family. You don't know anything about them to that degree. But when you're on that level, now it's different. And that's what the modern family office is about. That's what family offices are. They know inside and out everything about the family, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah, sure, sure. No, that's cool. That's a cool concept too. So let's that reminded me of something I did want to talk about. And you referenced this early on when we were talking about true wealth and about your mom. Let's talk about community and how that matters just in terms of being happy about things or how it was fulfilling about it and how that ties in with our money and why that matters, why it should matter to parents and their kids long term.
Yeah. So communities define different ways. Everyone has a different definition of it. And your community changes as you go throughout life.
Yeah.
Right. But in community in general is just a group of people that you like and you get along with and you have similar purposes and drives, etc. Right. And by doing so, if things happen in life, you can rely on your community to help you.
Mm,
Because there's going to be items in your life that happen. Things
sure.
will happen to you that are negative. And the best thing that happens is when your community comes around you and helps lift you up or takes place for something or whatever it may be. It might be fixing something, it might be bringing you food. Who knows?
Mm,
But that community being able to lift you up is what our humans are about because then we can continue on. And guess what? Something's going to happen with your community and you're going to be there for them. That allows us as humans to not feel alone. The worst thing in humanity is when a person feels alone. That's when depression kicks in. That's when suicidal thoughts, all these things spiral,
yeah.
feel as if we are alone. And there are people out there right now that feel alone, but physically are not, right? They have kids, they have family, they have community, but for some reason they feel alone. And that means they're not connected somewhere. And that's what we mean by community, why it's so powerful for what children. Doesn't matter, right? They have their own little community. My boys, they get on their video games with their friends and
Yeah.
talk about the stupidest things I've ever heard in my life. But I'm probably sure I did the same thing.
Yeah.
But they've got their community to help lift them up. And that's what's the powerful part about it. Then it takes you to a level of success in your life that you just don't know about because you can't dream that big when you're just by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that I've found too is that when you're on the side where you're helping out people that you care about, people in your community or your communities, right? If you've got different sort of groups that are important to you, when you're helping out there, it also feels good for you personally, right? It's kind of back to that, sort of selfless and selfish, right? It feels, I mean, so I'm sure that was part of the thing with your mom, right? She was maybe didn't have the balance that in retrospect, you can look back and be like, oh, she didn't do enough for herself. But I'm sure she got some satisfaction and felt good about helping others when she did, right? And so I think that's a big part of it. And that's another thing about when you reach a level of financial stability, even before you get to financial independence, but even just financial stability, and you've got enough of a cushion that if you've got to help someone in a community of yours that that's really going to be important for them or they really need that right now, if that feels good for you as well as being helpful for them. And then right, it just pulls everything together and strengthens everyone. So yeah. Yeah, cool. I don't know what other thoughts are on your mind. What do you
Yeah,
want people to take away from this?
you had said opportunities earlier,
Yeah.
kind of a little bit in passing, but like opportunities. We have to be looking for those. I wanted to hit upon that a little deeper on that. So I don't believe that you go search opportunities. I believe opportunities come into your life just because. But the reason it comes into your life just because is because you've prepared for it. Being a college football player, we would train for 9 months, 10 months out of the year to play or to have 11 opportunities to play a football game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, luckily, those were scheduled on the calendar, but at least we could see them, right? And we didn't play them if we're hurt, sick, etc. In life, it's very much similar, except for we're training every day of the year for an opportunity that may pop up sometime that we don't know when it comes up, right? And some people call it luck, right? Like you always see people who always find something, it always works out for them, and we all call them lucky. I don't call them lucky. There's a level of luck, of course, because it's just law of averages. But if you're not prepared both mentally and physically, that opportunity you won't, one, see, or two, be able to take advantage of because you're not prepared. And so I think a lot of us go throughout life not prepared, both mentally and physically, for an opportunity to occur. I'm sure there's been hundreds of opportunities that pass us all. Yeah. But if you are not ready and fit for it mentally or physically, you don't even see it. It just goes right on by.
Yeah.
And that's the whole purpose of this. It's a lifelong journey, right? Life and wealth are very interconnected. Sure. You'll ever be at the end of your road from a wealth money perspective, and you damn sure won't on the life, because at some point we all die, right? Yep. So right. It's always going to be there for you. So how often are these opportunities going to come up? Can't answer that for you.
Right.
But can you be prepared mentally and physically? Yes. That is in your control. That effort will lead to opportunities. And those might be opportunities that you seeked out because you had a podcast or, you name it. That necessarily isn't you seeking out an opportunity. It's you being fit. And then the opportunity presented itself because of you being in the right state of mind and you having the right energy and all of those things. So that's what I wanted to hit upon back with the opportunities that you spoke about.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point and a good perspective. And I would just add to that you mentioned mentally and physically, and that's true, right? Those are the things we have control over, but also, right, with your money, managing your money well and building up some sort of store of extra money, right? If we go back to your exercise that you gave, where you're highlighting what brings you joy, what you like spending money on, and what stuff you're just spending, right? Your red and your green visual. The more you maximize the green and the more you can decrease the red, and then that gives you this reserve of money that then you can set aside to create your financial stability and then to continue to invest that and build up financial wealth and go towards financial independence. As you do that and you have that excess money also puts you in a position to take advantage of opportunities, right? Whether those are investment opportunities or it's an opportunity for some sort of trip you'd always wanted to do and there's this great deal on it right now and you want to jump on it, or to help out someone in your community like we were talking about a few minutes ago. So I would just add, right, that the money plays in. Having excess money also puts you in a position to take advantage of opportunities whenever they present themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no. Okay, cool stuff. Any final thoughts or anything else you want? If people were going to take one thing away from our conversation, what would it be?
That you're not alone in life. There are resources out there, us on the podcast, literally right now, or all the resources that we have, our networks, our communities around you. Don't think you're in life, living this life alone, because you're not. There's millions of people who are in a very similar situation than you, and past millions that have gotten out of that situation. So there are ways to get through wherever you're at to take that next step in your journey. And I'll go into this as well of the fact of, I always ask this on podcasts of communicate, come DM us, comment, email, I don't care. But the only way that you're going to take that step forward is if you communicate what's going on. And we are solely here to help you in that regard, right? But we also can't create more content and know what we need to create to help you either if we don't have communication, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it for the algorithm, like, share, follow, do all those things, but not because of the algorithm, because if we can get in front of more people, that means more people are commenting. The more people that are commenting and communicating, the more people we can all help. And the more people we all help, again, strengthens our community. When we have a strong community, then guess what? We're all going to be living truly happy, truly wealthy.
Yeah. Amen to all of that. I couldn't agree more, because I think coming from middle class life or lower middle class or even working poor, it's just so common that we don't talk about money, right? It's just, and I think going back to, you're talking about the ultra rich, or even not the ultra rich, but just people that are wealthy. My understanding just from reading and hearing different things is that they talk about money all the time, right? And so those of us who didn't grow up in that world are missing out. So your point of reach out, comment, right? Leave comments for us, talk to other people that you know about money, whatever it might be. Don't be afraid to talk about it, because it's only going to help you. And then you start to realize, oh, what other people are doing, you help each other, right? And then you can, right, talking about communities or different kind of communities, you can have a community of people around you where, you're helping each other with your money, right? And you can teach those habits, and your kids see that. You teach those habits to your kids, and you talk to your kids about money. And then we start to shift that whole cultural mindset of, oh, don't talk about money. Like, no, talk about it, please.
Absolutely. Could not agree more.
Yeah. So where can people reach you?
Everywhere. I'm on every social media platform except for Reddit because I got kicked off. But go ahead, search Stoy Hall. I'm out there. You can look up Black Mammoth or No BS Wealth as well. We are on every social media platform known to man, but also we have our own websites, blackmammoth.com, nobswealth.com as well. And so you can see us everywhere. Reach out. We try to push out as much content to bring an unfiltered, transparent conversation to money and help you understand it from a different lens that isn't the media or those who are not regulated on TikTok that tell you to do terrible things. We make sure you're doing the right things.
Yeah. Okay, great. And I'll put all that information in the show notes. So I'll make it easy. Well, I won't put every last social media thing. They can look those up, but I'll put the websites and stuff in the show notes so people can click on those and find you from there. So thank you so much, Stoy, for coming on. I think it was a great conversation. You're doing some really cool stuff. You had some great advice for people today. So lots of good takeaways. So thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the FI for Kids podcast. Please support the show by hitting subscribe and receive new episodes every Thursday. The intro and exit music this episode are courtesy of Douglas Cameron. As always, you can find links to the FI for Kids music in the show notes. Thanks again, and we'll talk next week.
You're like the horizon. I can't reach you, you're so far away. And if I run to the place I want you to stay, you'd be gone. I'd be left wondering why you moved on, and why you never said goodbye. I can't wait any longer. I see the writing on the wall. It's time for us to say, tomorrow we are yesterday. Tomorrow we are yesterday. You're like the sunset. You're glowing bright, but you're fading. And what I don't get is why I'm left here waiting. But I'm like a phoenix. I will rise up from this fire. It's something we can't fix. I guess it's time for us to retire. I can't wait.